My mom wants me to forgive the man who assaulted me and let him go near me and my child unsupervised. I was assaulted by my husband's best friend Jack when I was 16, but that wasn't even the worst part. You see, my mother never liked my husband, but she absolutely loved Jack. He came from a great family with a great reputation, so when Jack had his way with me, my mom never believed me when I told her. To pour salt in the wound, Jack's mom was also my mom's boss, and I knew that played a big part in my mom not believing me, but I refused to stay silent. I went to the authorities despite my mom begging me not to. While I was waiting for trial, I moved in with my boyfriend, now husband, and his parents because my mom got so hostile with me at home. That's when things turned bad though. While at my boyfriend's, I found out I was pregnant. I knew it wasn't my boyfriend's either, because we were never intimate and I was never with anyone like that beforehand. Fast forward 5 months to the end of trial. Jack admitted to the charges and ended up taking a plea deal and got no jail time. The only caveat was he never had the right to see my daughter. She was born 9 months later, and the day that happened, my mother asked me to move back home and said sorry for everything she did. I knew it was fishy, but she was my mom, so I decided to forgive her. Big mistake. But not at first. The first year was peaceful. My mom apologized to me, was the perfect grandmother, cooked us dinner, the works. But then 1 year later, everything changed. But not because my mother changed. You see, I went to college a few hours away, and my mom had retired early to watch my daughter while I went to college. During the week, I stayed on campus and went home on the weekends. Well, one day we had a big snowstorm. Huge. And my Thursday and Friday classes were canceled, so I went home early without telling my mom to surprise her. And guess who was in the kitchen when I walked in? Jack's mom, my mom, and Jack. Jack was also holding Emma, my daughter, when I walked in. They were surprised to say the least, and I started flipping out and grabbed my daughter and packed a bag with her stuff. My mother and Jack's mother were pleading with me to not leave while I was packing. When I went to leave, my mom was crying, now begging me to forgive her. I said I would never forgive her and went to walk out. On my way out, Jack grabbed my arm and said I should be nicer to my mother. My mother called me hundreds of times, but I never answered her. I left to get an apartment with my husband and daughter. I also got a babysitter for when I was in class. A week after this incident, my mother put over $100,000 in my bank account to buy me over or get me to talk to her. I didn't even know where she got that money from. My younger sister got married years after this happened, and I had to interact with my mom again. I had to be civil with her as she asked about Emma, who she hadn't seen in 10 years, my son Tyler, and my current pregnancy. She told me how she wanted to fix things with me and see her grandkids before she eventually dies. She even claimed she always believed me about the assault. She just didn't want to be fired. I asked her if she still hangs out with Jack's mother. She said sometimes, but mostly at church. I left the conversation at that. I was mad because on top of allowing Jack to see my daughter, she hangs out with a woman who went around town telling everyone that I was a lying slut, that Jack hadn't taken advantage of me, and we actually slept together, and I felt guilty about it and lied saying he assaulted me. When I got home, I was mad off and just needed to cool down. I thought a lot that night about what happened, and the next day I made the decision to call my mom for the first time in 10 years. I wanted to talk to her more and see if we could move forward from what happened, and see if I could forgive her. The conversation went well at first. We were talking about current things in our life, but then the conversation turned to church, which led to her talking about Jack. She felt the need to inform me how much my daughter looks like his other kids, because apparently I'm supposed to care. I told her I did not want to talk about him, but she continued. She said he's a better person now and feels terrible for what he did, and how I should forgive him because it happened so long ago. You should be over it by now, she said. I got mad. My mother has never heard about what happened from me. She only ever listened to his story about what happened. So I told her what happened, what really happened, and how her talking about the man who assaulted me will make me have zero respect for her. I told her to never call me, to keep our relationship the way it's been for the last years because she is never going to change. I ended with telling her I would never bring any of my kids around her because I couldn't trust her to be around them. My hands were shaking as I hung up the phone. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, trying to steady my breathing. My husband looked up from his laptop at the dining table, concern etched across his face. He didn't need to ask what happened. He could see it written all over me. I sat down heavily in the chair across from him, the glass trembling in my grip. The conversation with my mother kept replaying in my mind, especially her words about how I should be over it by now. My stomach churned as I thought about her casual mention of Jack's other children, as if comparing them to Emma was somehow normal or acceptable. My husband closed his laptop and reached across the table, placing his hand over mine. I pulled away and stood up abruptly, needing to move, needing to do something with the angry energy coursing through me. I started pacing the kitchen, my footsteps echoing on the tile floor. The doorbell rang, interrupting my spiral of thoughts. I froze, immediately on edge. We weren't expecting anyone. My husband got up to answer it while I stayed in the kitchen, listening. I heard the door open, then the sound of rustling paper. He came back carrying a small package addressed to Emma. "There's no return address," he said, turning the box over in his hands. Something cold settled in my stomach as I took the package from him. It was wrapped in pink paper with a bow on top, clearly meant to appeal to a young girl. My fingers tightened around the box as suspicion crept through me. I grabbed a knife from the drawer and carefully cut through the tape. Inside was a silver necklace with a heart pendant, along with a note that simply said, "For Emma, from someone who cares." My hands started shaking again, this time with a different kind of fear. I showed the note to my husband, watching his jaw tighten as he read it. Without a word, I walked to the garbage can and dropped the entire package inside. My husband nodded in agreement. We both knew we couldn't tell Emma about this. Not yet. She was at school, blissfully unaware that someone was trying to send her gifts. Over the next few days, more packages arrived. A bracelet, a book about family trees, a photo album with blank pages. Each one went straight into the trash without Emma knowing. I started checking the mail obsessively, intercepting anything suspicious before she could see it. Then one afternoon, Emma came home from school with an unusual bounce in her step. She dropped her backpack by the door and practically skipped into the kitchen where I was preparing dinner. "Mom, I made a new friend online," she announced, pulling out her phone. My knife paused mid-chop. "Oh? Tell me about them," I said, trying to keep my voice casual while alarm bells rang in my head. "His name is Sebastian," Emma said, scrolling through her messages. "He knows so much about our family. He told me things about Grandma that even you probably don't know." The knife slipped from my hand, clattering onto the cutting board. I turned to face Emma fully, my heart pounding. "What kind of things?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Emma shrugged, still looking at her phone. "Just stuff about when she was younger, where she worked, things like that. He says he's doing genealogy research and found our family really interesting. I walked over and gently took the phone from her hands. Honey, can I see these messages? Emma looked confused but handed it over. As I scrolled through the conversation, my blood ran cold. The messages were careful, friendly, but there were details only someone close to our family would know. Details about my mother's old job, about the town we used to live in, about family members I'd never mentioned to Emma. Emma, I need you to block this person right now, I said, handing the phone back to her. But Mom, why? He's just being friendly. Please, just do it, I insisted, my voice sharper than I intended. Emma's face fell, but she did as I asked, blocking the account. I pulled her into a hug, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I just want you to be safe online. You can't trust people you don't know in real life. That evening, after Emma went to bed, I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, sounding surprised to hear from me again so soon. I thought you said never to call you, she said, a hint of hope in her voice. Did you give someone Emma's information? I demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. There was a pause. What are you talking about? Someone's been sending gifts to Emma, anonymous packages, and now she's getting messages online from someone who knows way too much about our family. Did you tell someone where we live? I don't know what you're talking about, my mother stammered, but something in her voice didn't ring true. Mom, I swear, if you had anything to do with this, did Emma like the gifts? She asked suddenly, then immediately tried to backtrack. I mean, if someone sent her gifts, did she see them? My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles went white. You knew about the gifts, I said, my voice deadly quiet. You knew, and you didn't think to warn me? I just thought maybe if she got to know him a little, through nice gestures. I hung up before she could finish. My whole body was shaking with rage. I immediately went to our computer and started changing all of our online passwords, privacy settings, everything I could think of. My husband helped, both of us working in tense silence. The next few weeks were a nightmare of vigilance. I drove Emma to and from school every day. No more walking with friends. I attended every school event, scanning the crowds for any sign of Jack. Then I saw him. It was at Emma's spring concert. He was standing at the back of the auditorium, partially hidden behind a pillar, but I recognized him instantly. The same build, the same way of standing with his hands in his pockets. My blood turned to ice as I watched him watching the stage where Emma would soon perform. I whispered to my husband, who immediately got up and walked toward the back, but by the time he reached the pillar, Jack was gone. We stayed for Emma's performance, but I couldn't focus on her beautiful singing. My eyes kept scanning the exits, the shadows, anywhere he might be hiding. This pattern continued for weeks. Jack would appear at the edges of Emma's activities, soccer games, school plays, even outside the grocery store when we were shopping. Always just visible enough for me to see him, never close enough to violate any legal boundaries. He was playing a sick game, and I was losing my mind. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I left Emma with my husband one evening and drove to Jack's house. I'd found his address through public records, my hands shaking as I typed his name into the search bar. The house was modest, well kept, with children's toys scattered on the front lawn. The sight of those toys made my stomach turn. I rang the doorbell and waited. When Jack opened the door, his face showed no surprise. He'd been expecting me. Leave my family alone, I said without preamble. Stop sending gifts. Stop showing up at Emma's school. Stop trying to contact her online. Jack leaned against the doorframe, a small smile playing at his lips. I don't know what you're talking about, he said calmly. I'm just a concerned father who wants to know his daughter. She's not your daughter, I spat. You gave up any right to her the day you admitted what you did to me. His smile faded slightly. Legal rights can be challenged, he said quietly, especially when the mother is clearly unstable, cutting off family members, paranoid about innocent gifts. Are you threatening me? I asked, my voice shaking with rage. I'm just saying, Jack continued, his voice maddeningly calm, that courts tend to favor reformed individuals who've paid their debt to society, especially when they can prove the other parent is alienating the child from their biological family. I turned and walked away before I did something I'd regret, but his words echoed in my mind all the way home. That night, I started documenting everything. Every sighting, every gift, every attempt at contact. I took screenshots of the online messages, photographed the packages before throwing them away, created a detailed timeline of his stalking behavior. My husband suggested we go to the police, but I knew we needed more than just my word against his. So we installed security cameras around our house, dash cams in our cars, and I started carrying a voice recorder in my purse. If Jack wanted to play legal games, I'd be ready. The situation escalated when Emma came home from school one day in tears. Some kids had been saying mean things about me, calling me a liar and saying I'd ruined a good man's life. The rumors were spreading through the school like wildfire, and I knew exactly who was behind them. I called an emergency meeting with Emma's principal and teachers. Sitting in that conference room, I laid out the situation as calmly as I could, explaining the history without going into traumatic details. The principal, Mrs. Catherine, listened with growing concern. We've actually had a man asking questions about Emma, her teacher said slowly. He claimed to be a family friend doing a surprise for her birthday. We didn't give him any information, of course, but it was unsettling. I provided them with Jack's photo and a copy of the restraining order I'd started the process for. They promised to increase security and notify me immediately if he appeared again, but I knew I needed to do more. That weekend, I organized a community gathering at our local park. I'd lived in this neighborhood for 5 years, built relationships with our neighbors, been active in the community. These people knew me, trusted me. It was time to control the narrative before Jack's poison spread further. Standing in front of the gathered crowd, neighbors, Emma's friends' parents, local business owners, I took a deep breath and began to speak. I didn't go into graphic details, but I explained that someone from my past who had hurt me was now trying to insert himself into my daughter's life. I asked for their support in keeping our children safe and being vigilant about strangers asking questions. The response was overwhelming. Parents shared their own stories of protecting their children, offered to help with school pickup, promised to keep an eye out. Mrs. Jones from down the street, whose daughter was Emma's best friend, pulled me aside afterward. We've got your back, she said firmly. Anyone tries to spread lies about you in this neighborhood, they'll have to go through all of us first. But Jack wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I was served with legal papers. My mother and Jack had filed a petition with Child Protective Services, claiming I was neglecting Emma's emotional needs by denying her access to her biological family. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. My husband immediately called our lawyer while I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the papers in disbelief. My own mother had conspired with my attacker to try to take my daughter away from me. The betrayal cut deeper than anything she'd done before. The next few months were a blur of legal preparations, gathering evidence, and trying to maintain normalcy for Emma and Tyler. We didn't tell Emma about the legal legal battle, but she sensed something was wrong. She'd become quieter, more anxious, clinging to me in a way she hadn't since she was little. The court date arrived on a gray Tuesday morning. I dressed carefully, choosing a conservative suit that made me look responsible, stable. My husband held my hand as we walked into the courthouse, our lawyer Seb carrying boxes of evidence. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Jack sat at the plaintiff's table with his lawyer, my mother beside him. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Jack, however, stared at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The judge entered, and we all stood. My legs felt unsteady as I watched her take her seat, knowing she held my family's future in her hands. The proceedings began with Jack's lawyer presenting their case, painting me as an unstable mother who'd cut off family ties and denied Emma her heritage. I gripped the edge of the table as they presented their evidence. Photos of me at the community gathering, which they twisted into proof of my paranoid behavior. They had recordings of my mother crying about being denied access to her grandchildren. They even had character witnesses from Jack's church, people who testified about his transformation and dedication to his family. When it was our turn, Seb methodically laid out our evidence. The timeline of stalking incidents, the anonymous packages, screenshots of the online messages to Emma, security camera footage showing Jack lurking near our home. Each piece built our case, but I could see the judge's expression remained neutral, giving nothing away. Then came the testimony phase. My mother took the stand first, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue as she described how I'd torn our family apart and prevented her from having a relationship with Emma. She claimed she'd only allowed Jack to see Emma that one time because she believed in forgiveness and second chances. During cross-examination, Seb pressed her about the anonymous gifts. She denied knowledge at first, but when he presented phone records showing calls between her and Jack's number immediately before each package arrived, she faltered. The judge's eyebrow raised slightly, the first crack in her poker face. Jack testified next, presenting himself as a reformed man who'd made mistakes in his youth, but had since dedicated his life to being a good father and community member. He spoke about his other children, his stable marriage, his volunteer work. He claimed he only wanted to know Emma existed and was well cared for. When Seb questioned him about appearing at Emma's school events, Jack had an answer for everything. He was just passing by. He had legitimate business in the area. He'd never approached Emma directly, so where was the harm? His calm demeanor made my skin crawl. Then something unexpected happened. The judge called for a brief recess, and when we returned, she announced that Emma had requested to speak with her privately in chambers. My heart stopped. We hadn't prepared Emma for this possibility. She didn't even know the full extent of what was happening. The wait was excruciating. 20 minutes felt like hours. When the judge returned, her expression had changed. She called the court back to order and announced that based on Emma's testimony and the evidence presented, she was not only denying the petition but issuing a permanent restraining order against Jack. Relief flooded through me, but Jack's face had turned dark. As we left the courthouse, he brushed past me and whispered, "This isn't over." My mother hurried after him without looking at me, their alliance now fully exposed. The next few weeks were deceptively quiet. Emma seemed lighter, though we still hadn't told her the full details of the court case. She only knew that some people had been bothering our family, and the judge had made them stop. We tried to return to normal life, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing. Then the accident started. First, my husband's brake lines were mysteriously damaged, caught by our mechanic during a routine service before anything happened. Then Emma's school received an anonymous tip about substances in her locker, resulting in a humiliating search that found nothing. Our credit cards were repeatedly compromised. Someone called child services with false reports of neglect. Each incident alone could be explained away, but the pattern was clear. Jack was trying to destabilize our lives without technically violating the restraining order. We reported everything to the police, but without concrete proof linking him to these incidents, their hands were tied. The breaking point came when Emma's best friend's mother, Mrs. Jones, called me in tears. Someone had sent compromising photos to her husband's workplace, photos that had been digitally altered to look like her in inappropriate situations. The anonymous message claimed she was having an affair with multiple men in the neighborhood. Her marriage was in crisis. Other families who'd supported us began experiencing similar attacks, mysterious calls to employers, false reports to various agencies, digitally manipulated images. Jack was systematically targeting anyone who'd stood by us, trying to isolate us from our support system. Some families distanced themselves, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire. Others stood firm, but I could see the strain it was putting on them. The guilt ate at me. These people were suffering because they'd tried to help us. Then Emma came home from school one day with news that shattered our carefully maintained calm. "Mom, we have a new counselor at school," she said. "Mr. McCatherine. He seems really interested in our family. He keeps asking me how things are at home." My blood ran cold. I immediately called the school, but the secretary confirmed they'd hired a new counselor. His credentials checked out, his references were solid, there was no reason to suspect him of anything inappropriate, but the timing was too convenient. I drove to the school the next morning, determined to meet this new counselor. The man who greeted me in the counseling office was unfamiliar, professional, seemingly genuine, but something in his eyes when he looked at me set off every alarm in my system. Over the following days, Emma mentioned more conversations with Mr. McCatherine. He was asking about her feelings regarding family, whether she ever felt like she was missing something in her life, if she ever wondered about extended family members she didn't know. The questions were subtle, carefully worded to seem therapeutic, but I recognized the manipulation. We tried to request Emma be assigned to a different counselor, but the school administration pushed back. Mr. McCatherine was highly qualified, they said. Emma seemed to respond well to him. Without concrete evidence of wrongdoing, they wouldn't make a change. Meanwhile, the harassment campaign continued. My husband's employer received anonymous complaints about his work performance. Tyler's daycare was repeatedly called with false concerns about bruises and behavioral issues. Every aspect of our lives was under attack. Then I received a call that changed everything. It was from a woman named Sarah who said she needed to speak with me urgently about Jack. We met at a coffee shop downtown, where she revealed she was Jack's ex-wife, the mother of his other children. Sarah's story was chilling. She'd left Jack years ago after discovering he'd been grooming their teenage babysitter. She'd fought for full custody and won, but Jack had systematically destroyed her life in revenge. Lost jobs, ruined relationships, constant legal battles. She'd eventually moved across the country to escape him. When I heard he was doing this to another family, I had to warn you, she said, sliding a thick folder across the table. This is everything I documented. Every incident, every pattern. He won't stop until he gets what he wants or destroys you trying. The folder was a roadmap of Jack's tactics. Sarah had detailed how he recruited recruited others to help him, how he stayed just within legal boundaries while orchestrating chaos. Most importantly, she had names and dates that correlated with similar incidents in our lives. Armed with this new information, we went back to the police. This time, they took notice. The pattern of behavior across multiple victims in different states suggested something more serious than harassment. They opened a formal investigation, but Jack must have sensed the walls closing in. The attacks intensified. Our home security system was mysteriously offline one night, though nothing was taken. Emma received a birthday card at school with no signature, just a photo of a family reunion she'd never attended. Tyler's daycare reported a man matching Jack's description asking questions about pickup procedures. Then came the night that nearly broke us. I woke at 3 a.m. to find Emma's bedroom window open, her curtains billowing in the breeze. She was still asleep in her bed, unharmed, but someone had been in our home. On her desk was a photo, Jack holding a baby, with "She looks just like you did" written on the back. The police found no fingerprints, no DNA, no evidence except the photo. The security cameras showed nothing. They'd been disabled remotely. Jack had wanted us to know he could reach Emma whenever he wanted. The message was clear. The restraining order meant nothing to him. We moved Emma into our bedroom that night. I didn't sleep for days, jumping at every sound. My husband took time off work to help with security. We were prisoners in our own home, afraid to let our children out of our sight. The school situation escalated when Mr. McCatherine suggested Emma join a special family dynamics group therapy session. When I refused, he expressed concern about my resistance to Emma's emotional development. Suddenly, I was painted as the problematic parent preventing my child from getting help. Other parents began receiving calls from Mr. McCatherine, expressing worry about Emma's home situation. He suggested she showed signs of emotional neglect, that she seemed isolated from extended family. The seeds of doubt he planted grew quickly in the school community gossip mill. Emma started coming home upset, saying kids were asking why her mom didn't want her to be happy, why she wasn't allowed to know her real family. The psychological warfare was taking its toll on all of us, but especially on her. Then Sarah called with urgent news. She'd been tracking Jack's activities through a network of his other victims she'd connected with over the years. He'd recently been in contact with a lawyer known for taking on parental alienation cases, someone who specialized in overturning restraining orders and gaining custody for reformed parents. We realized this had all been part of a larger plan. The harassment wasn't just revenge. It was designed to make me look unstable, paranoid, unfit. Every reaction I had was being documented and twisted to support a future custody case. I made the difficult decision to pull Emma out of school for the remainder of the year, citing safety concerns. The school threatened truancy charges, but our lawyer advised it was better than leaving her exposed to Mr. McCatherine's influence. The isolation was crushing. Emma missed her friends, her normal life. She began asking questions we couldn't fully answer without traumatizing her. How do you explain to a child that the biological father she's never known is a predator? That her grandmother chose him over her own daughter? Our marriage strained under the pressure. My husband remained supportive, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He'd signed up to be Emma's father, but not for this endless battle. Late-night arguments became more frequent as we debated our options. Should we move? Change our names? How far would we have to run to escape Jack's reach? But running felt like letting him win, and there was no guarantee he wouldn't find us again. Then the private investigator we'd hired uncovered something crucial. Mr. McCatherine wasn't who he claimed to be. His credentials were forged, his references fake. He was actually Jack's cousin, someone who'd helped him before in stalking previous victims. This discovery broke the case open. The school was mortified at their failure to properly vet him. The police now had concrete evidence of an elaborate conspiracy. Warrants were issued for both Jack and the fake counselor, but they vanished before police could arrest them. Jack's house was empty, cleaned out. Mr. McCatherine never returned to the school. My mother's phone was disconnected. They'd all gone underground. The not knowing was almost worse than the active harassment. Every stranger on the street could be watching us. Every unexpected noise made my heart race. We lived in a constant state of hypervigilance. 2 weeks into their disappearance, I received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a time, date, and location. A park where Emma used to play when she was younger. At the bottom, in Jack's handwriting, "Come alone if you want this to end." I knew it was a trap. Everything in me screamed not to go, but I was so tired of running, of looking over my shoulder, of watching my family suffer. Maybe it was time to face this head on. I showed the letter to my husband and Sarah. Both begged me not to go, but I'd already made up my mind. This had to end one way or another. We compromised. I would go, but they would be nearby, ready to call police if needed. The night before the meeting, I sat with Emma as she slept, watching her peaceful face. She deserved better than this life of fear and secrets. Tyler deserved to grow up without the shadow of Jack's threat. My husband deserved a wife who wasn't constantly looking over her shoulder. I thought about my mother, wondering if she was with Jack, if she was part of this final play. The woman who should have protected me had become my enemy's greatest ally. The betrayal still burned fresh after all these years. As dawn broke on the day of the meeting, I prepared myself for whatever was coming. The evidence we'd gathered was safely stored with our lawyer. Emma and Tyler were with trusted friends in a location Jack didn't know about. If something happened to me, they would be protected. I drove to the park as the morning mist clung to the ground. My hands were steady on the wheel, my mind clear. This cat and mouse game had gone on long enough. Today, one way or another, it would end. The park was empty except for a lone figure sitting on a bench near the playground. As I walked closer, I realized it wasn't Jack. It was my mother. She looked older, frailer than when I'd last seen her in court. Her hands shook as she clutched her purse. "He's not coming," she said as I approached. "He sent me to deliver a message." I stood several feet away, ready to run if needed. "What message?" She pulled out an envelope, holding it out with trembling fingers. "He's leaving the country. He wanted you to know he's done fighting, but he had conditions." I didn't take the envelope. "What conditions?" "He wants a photo of Emma every year on her birthday, sent to a P.O. box. No return address needed, just so he knows she's okay." My mother's voice cracked. "He says if you agree to this, he'll disappear forever. If not what?" I demanded. She finally met my eyes, and I saw fear there. "He says he'll dedicate his life to making yours miserable, that what you've experienced so far is nothing compared to what he's capable of." I stared at her. This woman who gave birth to me, who should have protected me, who chose my attacker over her own daughter. "And you're helping him. Still, I don't have a choice," she whispered. "He knows things about me, things that would destroy what little life I have left." "You always had a choice," I said. "You just never chose me." I turned and walked away, leaving her crying on the bench. I didn't take the envelope. I wouldn't negotiate negotiate with Jack, wouldn't give him even a photo of Emma. He'd taken enough from us. As I drove home, I called the police to report the meeting. They found my mother still in the park, but she claimed to know nothing about Jack's whereabouts. The envelope contained only the P.O. box information and a photo of Jack's other children, a final, twisted reminder of what Emma was missing. That was 3 months ago. Jack hasn't been found, despite a nationwide search. The fake counselor was arrested trying to cross into Canada and is awaiting trial. My mother was charged with aiding and abetting, but received probation due to her age and claims of coercion. We've slowly begun rebuilding our lives. Emma is in therapy with a real counselor, carefully working through the trauma of the past year without fully understanding its scope. She's back in school, with new security measures in place. Tyler remains blissfully unaware of the danger that surrounded us. The community that stood by us has grown stronger through the ordeal. Mrs. Jones's marriage survived the attack on her reputation. Parents are more vigilant about school security. What Jack meant to destroy has only bonded us closer together. But I still check the locks twice each night. I still scan crowds for his face. I still jump when unexpected packages arrive. Sarah tells me this hypervigilance may never fully fade. It's the price of surviving someone like Jack. My husband and I are in counseling too, working through the strain this put on our marriage. He's never wavered in his commitment to Emma, to our family, but we both carry scars from this battle. Trust, once broken by those who should protect you, is not easily rebuilt. Emma asked me recently why she doesn't have grandparents like her friends do. I told her a version of the truth, that sometimes families break apart when people make choices that hurt others. She seemed to accept this, but I know harder questions are coming as she grows older. The investigation revealed Jack had done this before, multiple times. Sarah wasn't his only victim. There was a trail of women across several states who'd fought similar battles, who'd lived in fear of his retaliation. Some had given in to his demands. Others had run. A few, like us, had fought back. We've formed a support network, the survivors of Jack's obsession. We share information, watch for signs of his reappearance, offer each other the understanding that only comes from shared trauma. It's a sisterhood none of us wanted to join. The police believe Jack did leave the country, possibly to somewhere without extradition treaties. But I don't feel safe. Men like Jack don't simply give up. They retreat, regroup, and return when you least expect it. So we remain vigilant, living our lives but always aware of the shadows. I stared at the screen of my laptop, refreshing the news site for the third time that morning. Nothing about Jack. The fake counselor's trial was set for next month, but Jack remained a ghost. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, forgotten beside the stack of legal documents Seb had sent over. Emma bounded into the kitchen, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She grabbed an apple from the counter and kissed my cheek. My husband followed, adjusting his tie while Tyler clung to his leg, still in dinosaur pajamas. Ready for school? I asked Emma, forcing normalcy into my voice. She nodded, then paused at the door. Mom, Lily's having a sleepover this weekend. Can I go? Lily was Mrs. Jones's daughter. The request should have been simple, but nothing felt simple anymore. I glanced at my husband, who gave me an encouraging nod. Let me talk to Lily's mom first, I said. Emma's face fell slightly, but she didn't argue. She understood our new normal included extra precautions. After they left, I called Mrs. Jones. She assured me they'd installed new security cameras, and her husband would be home all weekend. We arranged a system. Emma would text me every 2 hours, and I'd pick her up immediately if anything felt wrong. That afternoon, I met with the prosecutor handling the fake counselor's case. She spread photos across her desk, surveillance footage from various locations showing Jack's cousin stalking other families years ago. The pattern was undeniable. We've linked him to 7 other cases, she said. Your documentation helped us connect the dots. He's looking at serious time, but Jack remained untouchable, hidden somewhere beyond our reach. I picked up Emma from school, watching my mirrors more than the road ahead. At a red light, I noticed a car 3 vehicles back that had been behind us since the school. My pulse quickened. I took an unexpected turn, then another. The car continued straight. Just paranoia, but I couldn't shake the feeling. At home, I found my husband on the phone with our bank. Someone had tried to access our accounts from an IP address in Mexico. The attempt failed thanks to our new security protocols, but the location made my blood run cold. Mexico had no extradition treaty for harassment charges. Emma worked on homework at the kitchen table while I prepared dinner, trying to maintain our routine. Tyler played with blocks at her feet, occasionally showing her his creations. These quiet moments felt precious and fragile, like soap bubbles that might pop at any touch. My phone buzzed. Sarah had sent a message to our support group. New victim in Arizona, same pattern, gifts, online contact, escalation. She needs our help. I called the woman that night after the kids were asleep. Her voice shook as she described finding Jack at her daughter's dance recital, the anonymous packages, the fake social media accounts. I walked her through documenting everything, gave her our lawyer's number, shared what had worked for us. Will it ever end? She asked. I didn't have an answer. The next morning brought a registered letter from my mother's lawyer. She was suing for grandparent visitation rights. My hands trembled as I read the filing. She claimed I was alienating her grandchildren, denying them their heritage. The language echoed Jack's threats. Seb reviewed the documents that afternoon. She has no case, he assured me. The court already ruled on this, but we need to respond. More legal fees, more time in courtrooms, more energy spent fighting instead of living. Emma's sleepover approached. I helped her pack, including the emergency phone I'd bought her. She rolled her eyes, but tucked it into her sleeping bag without complaint. When I dropped her off, Mrs. Jones squeezed my hand. We've got 6 parents on rotation tonight, she said quietly. She'll be safe. I spent that evening pacing our house, checking my phone every few minutes. Emma's texts came like clockwork. Making pizza, watching movies. Lily's dad is teaching us card tricks. Each message loosened the knot in my chest slightly. My husband pulled me onto the couch, wrapping his arms around me. Tyler had fallen asleep against his chest, thumb in his mouth. We sat in silence, the weight of our new reality pressing down on us. The doorbell rang at 10 p.m. We both froze. My husband carefully placed Tyler on the couch and approached the door while I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911. Through the peephole, he saw our elderly neighbor holding a misdelivered package. We laughed afterward, but it was hollow. This was our life now. Every unexpected moment a potential threat. I picked up Emma the next morning. She chattered about the fun they'd had, seemingly unaware of the parent patrol that had guarded them all night. Her resilience amazed me, but I wondered what scars she carried beneath her cheerful exterior. That week, the fake counselor, whose real name was Marcus, made a deal. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he provided detailed information about Jack's network. The prosecutor called me with updates. They'd identified 3 more accomplices, all arrested, but Marcus claimed claimed not to know Jack's current location. He compartmentalized everything, she explained. Marcus only knew his part. I attended Marcus's sentencing. He avoided my eyes as the judge read the charges. 15 years, with possibility of parole in 7. As they led him away, he finally looked at me. His mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. Later, the bailiff told me he'd said he won't stop. Spring arrived with a cruel normalcy. Emma tried out for the school play and got a small part. Tyler started preschool 3 mornings a week. My husband got promoted. Life moved forward even as we looked backward. Then came the video. It arrived in an email from an untraceable address. The subject line read, "She's beautiful." My finger hovered over the delete button, but I needed to know. The video showed Emma at her school play rehearsal, filmed from outside the auditorium windows. The angle suggested someone in the parking lot with a telephoto lens. I drove to the school immediately, showed the principal the video. They reviewed security footage but found nothing suspicious. Whoever filmed it knew the camera blind spots. We increased security again, but how many times could we build the walls higher? The police traced the email to an internet cafe in Tijuana. Jack was taunting us from beyond their reach, showing us he could still watch, still violate our boundaries whenever he chose. Emma noticed the increased security at school. Is it because of him? She asked one evening, not needing to specify who. I'd planned to wait until she was older to explain everything, but she deserved some truth. I told her someone from the past was trying to bother our family, but we were protected. She nodded solemnly, suddenly looking older than her years. Is that why Grandma doesn't visit? She asked. The question pierced my heart. I explained that sometimes adults make choices that hurt relationships. She seemed to understand more than I'd given her credit for. My mother's visitation lawsuit proceeded slowly. Her lawyer kept filing motions, dragging out the process. Each court appearance meant time off work, more stress, more legal bills. She sat across the courtroom, looking smaller each time, but her determination never wavered. During one hearing, she broke protocol, calling out to me as I passed. "I just want to see them," she cried. "Please, I'm their grandmother." The bailiff quieted her, but her words echoed. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh. Then I remembered her sitting beside Jack in court, choosing him over me again. Summer brought a new development. The woman from Arizona called with news. Jack had made contact. He'd sent her a letter proposing a deal similar to what my mother had offered me. Photos in exchange for peace. She was considering it. "Don't," I urged her. "It never ends with just photos. He'll always want more." But I heard the exhaustion in her voice, the same weariness I felt. How long could any of us maintain this vigilance? Sarah organized a conference call with all the survivors she'd found. 12 women across 8 states, each with similar stories. We compared notes, shared strategies, discussed forming a formal advocacy group. There was power in numbers, but also a deep sadness that so many had suffered. One woman had given in to Jack's demands years ago. She sent photos, allowed supervised visits, tried to maintain peace. But he'd used that access to gradually poison her daughter against her. Now her daughter lived with Jack, convinced her mother was the villain. The cautionary tale strengthened my resolve. Emma's birthday approached. I planned a small party, just close friends and trusted families. The morning of, a delivery arrived. A large box with no return address. My husband intercepted it before Emma could see. Inside was an expensive dollhouse with a note. "Every princess needs a castle. Happy birthday, sweetheart." We photographed everything for evidence, then destroyed it. Emma never knew, celebrating with her friends, unaware of the shadow trying to touch her special day. The investigation expanded internationally. The FBI got involved due to the interstate nature of Jack's crimes. An agent visited our home, reviewing our evidence, asking detailed questions. They were building a case that would stick when they found him. "He's made mistakes," the agent assured us. "The video, the money transfers, the network he built, it all leaves trails. We'll find him." But weeks passed with no progress. Jack had learned from his mistakes, covered his tracks better. The agent's calls became less frequent, the case growing cold despite being technically active. My husband suggested we consider moving. His company had offices in London, Singapore, Sydney. We could start fresh somewhere Jack couldn't reach. But running felt like surrender, and there was no guarantee he wouldn't follow. Emma overheard us discussing it one night. "I don't want to move," she said from the doorway. "My friends are here. My life is here." She was right. We couldn't let Jack steal more from us than he already had. The fake counselor's prison communications were monitored, hoping he'd contact Jack. Instead, Marcus sent me a letter through his lawyer. He claimed to have information about Jack's location but wanted a deal. Support for his parole in exchange for what he knew. Seb advised against engaging, but desperation made me consider it. My husband talked me down, reminding me that Marcus had already proven himself a liar and manipulator. Fall arrived with school starting again. Emma entered middle school, a transition that would have been stressful without our added concerns. We met with administrators, established new security protocols, provided updated photos of Jack and known associates. Tyler started asking questions about why we were always careful, why we checked locks so many times. His innocence was another casualty of Jack's campaign. Then my mother had a heart attack. My sister called from the hospital. Mom was stable but weak. She'd been asking for me, for her grandchildren. My sister begged me to come, said this might be our last chance for reconciliation. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot for an hour, debating. My husband waited with me, not pushing either way. Finally, I went in alone. She looked fragile in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, her eyes filled with tears when she saw me. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything. I chose wrong. I see that now." I wanted to believe her, but trust had been shattered too many times. I told her I hoped she recovered, but couldn't promise more. She nodded, seeming to age further before my eyes. As I left, she called out weakly. "He contacts me sometimes. From Mexico. I could help you find him." I stopped at the door but didn't turn around. "You've helped him enough," I said, and left. The FBI agent called that night. My mother had already reached out to them, offering cooperation. Whether from genuine remorse or fear of dying alone, she was finally choosing a side. Her information proved valuable. She provided email addresses, phone numbers Jack had used, details about his financial resources. The investigation renewed with fresh energy. Emma's school play opened to a packed auditorium. I sat in the front row, my husband recording while I scanned the crowd. She delivered her lines perfectly, beaming under the stage lights. For a moment, I forgot to be afraid. Afterward, at the cast party, Emma pulled me aside. "Mom, I know you're scared for me," she said, "but I'm okay. We're okay. Don't let him take this from us too." My 12-year-old daughter had more wisdom than I'd realized. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jack's wife, his current wife, contacted Sarah. She'd found our support group online, recognized the pattern. He'd been controlling, suspicious, paranoid. She wanted out but feared for her children's safety. We conference called immediately. She was in Mexico City, had been for 2 years. Jack worked in private security, using skills he'd developed stalking us to protect wealthy clients. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. She agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for protection. Within days, Mexican federal police had Jack's apartment under surveillance. The FBI coordinated with local authorities, building an airtight case. I couldn't sleep the night of the planned arrest. Emma and Tyler were at a friend's house, just in case. My husband and I sat on the couch, phones in hand, waiting for news. The call came at dawn. They'd arrested Jack without incident. He'd been sleeping, apparently confident in his safety. They found evidence of his surveillance on multiple families, plans for future harassment, detailed files on all of us. Extradition would take time, but he was in custody. The agent assured me he'd be held without bail given his flight risk and history. I cried then, really cried, for the first time in months. My husband held me as years of tension released. It wasn't over. There would be trials, testimony, more legal battles, but he was caught. We picked up the kids and told them the bad man had been arrested. Emma hugged me tightly. Does this mean we can stop being scared? She asked. We can start, I said. My mother passed away 2 weeks later. Despite everything, I attended the funeral. My sister understood why I didn't bring the children. I said goodbye to the woman who should have protected me, who chose wrong until almost too late. I forgave her in my heart, even if I couldn't forget. Jack's extradition moved slowly through international courts. His wife filed for divorce and custody, joined our support network. We helped her navigate the system we knew too well. Emma auditioned for the spring musical and got the lead. Tyler joined Little League. My husband and I started date nights again. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt normal. The trial date was set for summer. I'd have to testify, face Jack again, but this time, I wouldn't be alone. Sarah would be there, and the woman from Arizona, and others who'd found courage in our shared strength. Emma asked if she could testify too. I want to tell them he doesn't get to hurt our family anymore, she said. We decided together, with her therapist's support, that she could provide a written statement instead. I still check locks, still watch mirrors, still jump at unexpected sounds. Maybe I always will, but now I also watch Emma sing on stage, help Tyler with homework, kiss my husband goodnight without fear stealing every moment. Jack took years from us, but he didn't take everything. We survived. We're healing. We're free. The last photo in our family album shows us at Emma's musical. Her in costume, Tyler on my hip, my husband's arm around us all. We're smiling, really smiling. Behind us, the auditorium is full of our community, the people who stood by us. That's the image I choose to remember. Not the fear, not the custody battles or restraining orders or sleepless nights. Just us, together, finally safe.